So, in the last video, I asked if you would all want to see a video discussing autism representation in Japanese video games, and the reception seemed to be unanimous, with you all wanting to see me dive into this topic. So, today, I've compiled a small list of autistic coded characters from Japanese video games that I think are good representations of all sorts of different areas of the spectrum in general. Thanks to those of you who suggested characters for the list too. There were some great suggestions that are also included on this list after I ended up researching them. I hope you enjoy what I have to say about this topic. Like I talked about my anime video, autism and mental health overall aren't really things that are discussed to the degree they should be in Japan. So it is nice to see representation like this in the form of autistic coded characters, whether or not they are intentionally created to be that way to begin with. But before we begin, be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with a friend that you think might like this message as well so it can get out there more as well. Also, if you haven't checked out my Twitch, definitely do so. I stream about 4 times a week. We're currently pushing for Twitch partners so I can set up an autism awareness stream team. Also, join my Discord if you haven't already too. But anyway, on to today's video. The first character I'd like to discuss is Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. Cloud is actually a character that was suggested at my panel at Portland Retro Gaming Expo that I held discussing autism this past month as of me making this video. So, fun fact about me, I love Final Fantasy VII. It is easily my top 10 video games of all time, and it's easily one of the most important video games ever made just in general. So, I guess the question is, does Cloud really show any autistic traits? As a matter of fact, he does. Probably the main trait to observe with Cloud is his masking. In Final Fantasy VII, as most of you likely know, Cloud undergoes an identity crisis where trauma ends up causing him to mask who he really is, as well as past insecurities and a lack of social skills. I've covered characters that do this as well in the past, like Okabe from Steins Gate, and it's interesting to see a similar trait within Cloud. Cloud does definitely show many autistic traits in my opinion, like the aforementioned lack of social skills and the default to masking his true self to try and cover that up and be noticed by people by pretending to be something he's not to try and fit in. Especially in 1997, this game was really ahead of the curve. If you'd like to see an entire video on me diving into the psychology of Final Fantasy VII as a whole, since I think there is a lot that could be unpacked there, get this video to at least 200 likes and I will gladly do it. Regardless, Cloud is a very interesting peek into autistic masking, especially for such an early gaming example. The next character I'd like to discuss is Miles Edgeworth from the Ace Attorney series. It's weird but cool how many autistic reps Ace Attorney has, not gonna lie. Explains why it's one of my favorite gaming series. Miles is honestly another great rep, since he has a clear hyperfixation on being the best prosecutor and investigator he possibly can be, and is meticulous about collecting evidence, going over autopsy reports, and gathering intel from witnesses. It's this hyperfixation that has led him to become one of the most revered prosecutors in the nation. However, he also has a hard time communicating with Phoenix, who I view as one of the only neurotypical characters in the Ace Attorney series. And to be honest, he seems to have a hard time communicating with anyone really, since he just seems to be thinking on a different plane than most people oftentimes. He is often seeming to think like 3 steps ahead of everybody else and just approaches situations much differently than most people that normally would. On top of this, Edgeworth is an incredibly well fleshed out character and arguably the most interesting in-depth character in the entire Ace Attorney series, with his tragic backstory and realization that the man who had been tutoring him is actually the reason his father is dead. It's this incredible writing that the Ace Attorney series honestly has in general that makes an autistic rep like Edgeworth shine all the more. Another character that was suggested pretty recently was actually Link from the Legend of Zelda series. This one caught me off guard at first, but upon thinking about it, I actually do see why he is viewed as an autistic coded character by a lot of people. In literally every game he is in, Link is a silent protagonist, which ultimately is supposed to be a way for the player to really put themselves in his shoes, since he is meant to be the literal link between them and the world of Hyrule. And it's because of this that the Zelda games almost have like a mystical sense of being able to suck their player into their journeys in a way a lot of other games just can't really touch. It's been this way for almost 40 years, and it's honestly been a genius element of these games for all that time, always keeping Link silent so that the player can project themselves onto him all the more easily. However, looking at the Breath of the Wild or Ocarina of Time versions of Link, I actually do see autism coding within these 2 specific Links. In the case of Breath of the Wild Link, his silence initially perturbs Princess Zelda upon their first meeting in the game, and it actually causes her to think he doesn't like her. She also gets upset when he attempts to attend her side as an escort, even though her father, the king, commanded him to do so. So there is a definite split in communication between the two of them, since Link is definitely trying to communicate in a more silent, thoughtful, autistic way, and Zelda, being neurotypical in this case, is just communicating in that way. And as a result, she doesn't really understand Link or what he's trying to do at all at first, but eventually they do bond and grow closer together over time, which is really cool to see, and it's one of the strongest parts of that game overall. As for Ocarina of Time Link, I do view him as autistic coded as well, since he was initially an outcast even from the start of the game. When you first start the game as Link in Kokiri Forest at the very beginning of Ocarina of Time, he is already seen as an outcast or different than all the different children of Kokiri in the forest here, and they all know something is different about him. And even wherever Link goes, even outside of this forest, he is treated as different. And he just seems to stand out from most folks he encounters overall throughout the course of the game, which does make me think that he actually is autistic as well. Also, the fact that literally every female character in this game wants to hit on him is kind of telling for that in my opinion as well, that autistic Riz. I hate that I said that, but it's true. Another character that was suggested is Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I think for a similar reason to Link they were suggested. Byleth, much like Link, is again another silent protagonist and one meant for the player to be able to project themselves onto. Fire Emblem overall is actually one of my favorite series in all of gaming, so I was very happy to see this character suggested being a good Fire Emblem autistic rep. I personally also do see the autism coding in Byleth, not necessarily because of the silent protagonist thing, but also just because of their incredible loyalty to everybody around them. Even when an all-out war begins, Byleth is still there at people's side no matter what. And as a professor too, they're always there to aid their students whenever they need it, and always go out of the way to lift others up and help educate them when they need it too in their classes. And they're incredibly dedicated to this, so I do actually feel Byleth is a pretty solid autistic rep as well. Another rep, who actually is also from a Fire Emblem game, is Muriel from Fire Emblem Awakening. Muriel is actually a witch who studies magic relentlessly, and is also very blunt with what she says constantly. She isn't horribly expressive and is just very matter-of-fact overall. And she does sort of showcase a lack of social awareness and lack of social skills too. And it's because of this, she actually is a pretty solid autistic rep in general in this game. It's cool to see that Fire Emblem actually has a solid amount of autistic reps as well. If y'all would like to see a video on me discussing autistic reps in just the Fire Emblem series, leave a comment down below telling me so. The last one I want to discuss for this video is actually Otacon from Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite gaming series ever as well, and I think you could make a very good argument that the first Metal Gear Solid game was the first modern video game ever. These games are full of rich storytelling, incredible themes that are honestly really relatable to real life, almost uncomfortably so at some points. Very interesting commentary on things like the use of technology, on war, and just things overall that kind of encompass the entire human condition. Otacon is a pretty notable character throughout the entire series, and initially is a scientist that you find on Shadow Moses Island, who is obsessed with anime and robots. Already, Otacon does showcase some pretty major hyperfixations, since even just a good chunk of the game is just dedicated to him talking about mecha and anime and all sorts of crazy things, almost non-stop. His passion for these things is so clear with how long he goes on about it. But also, Otacon is just a really well fleshed out, really well developed character as well, and his dynamic with Snake throughout the entire series is absolutely legendary. Snake initially starts out as basically just the school jock who wants to bully Otacon, seeing him as a weak nerd, but overall, he learns to value Otacon's intelligence and strength in his mind and the way he views things and helping him out of different sticky situations. And eventually, him and Otacon become best friends, and their friendship is honestly really legendary in these games in my opinion. It is one of the best bromances in any video game at all. And it's just really cool to see how this series treats Otacon overall. Overall, I do think Japanese video games do have some solid autistic representation. I do think there's still ways to go on some of it, obviously, because once again, Japan as a country does not really discuss mental health or neurodiversity as much as they really should. However, with how many autistic coded characters their games have, I can only hope with time we'll see more and more awareness spread over there. It really is a great thing to see. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. If you want to check out all my socials down below, you can see all those down there. And if you want to join my Discord too, where you can communicate with me and others offline, that should be linked down below. And if you want to check out my Letterboxd, that is linked down below as well. That's where I review movies, oftentimes movies or shows I won't review here on YouTube. So you can check that out too if you want extra content from me. But for now, I've been Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye!